Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 8th webinar of the Environmental Peacebuilding and Transitional Justice. This project is currently discussing matters regarding conflict, environment, natural resources, peacebuilding, and transitional justice. The objective is to document views and opinions from the Africa region and develop guidelines on the incorporation of environmental and natural resources aspect in transitional justice processes. Thus, this will call for the diverse actors involved in the post-conflict societies to adopt environmentally sensitive approaches in their initiatives. My name is Miriam Dangasuk, and I'm one of the project team members. Today, we are going to have a discussion from the IGAD and COMESA economic regions perspective. In our last webinars, we got different perspectives from the West Africa and the Eastern African regions. Today, we look forward to another engaging discussion. Our panelists are Ms. Hagar Monsif, who is the Regional Organizing Partner at UN NGO and Director of African Affairs and SDG Department. She's also a specialized researcher in security studies. Our next panelist is Ms. Kadra Omar, who has 25 years experiences in women, gender issues, and natural resource management. She's also involved in assessments on land resource inventory, including soils, land cover, land use, and soil aeration in Somaliland. Please note that the webinar is being recorded. Also use the chat section for your questions and keep the audio muted to limit background noises. I would also like to recognize and appreciate the efforts of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, led by Carl Brook and the team, Sheila, Claire, Harriet, among others. I would also like to appreciate the Bosch Alumni Network, led by Sarah Hamel, and they have been very supportive from the start of the series. To keep abreast of any upcoming webinars, please find the Environmental Peacebuilding events link in the chat section. And at this juncture, I would like to invite Munini to take over. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Miriam, for that introduction. A warm welcome to our participants and our panelists for the day. Just to add to what Miriam has said, that this discussion is also part of a larger series that is contributing to the second International Conference on Environmental Peacebuilding that will be taking place in Geneva in 2022. You're welcome to join us and you're welcome to follow up the discussion. Kindly visit the website, as Miriam says. We also want to acknowledge that we're also contributing to some proposed guidelines that will be giving information or will be informing the implementation of the African Union Transitional Justice Policy that was adopted in 2019. We do recognize that several countries are actually trying to develop their own transitional justice policies to contextualize the African Union Transitional Justice Policy. So these discussions will be contributing to that discussion from an environmental perspective. Without much ado, allow me to start welcoming the panelists for the day. And I would like to start with Ms. Kandra, who's calling in from Somaliland. Ms. Kandra has over 25 years of experience, and she has been involved in assessment surveys on land resource inventory, landscape restoration in a climate change program, sustainable livelihoods and rural community development, among other thematic areas of development. She has been at the forefront in creating strong coalitions for women political participation in Somaliland. Ms. Kandra has a bachelor's degree in global political and international relationship studies and a master's degree in humanitarian aid cooperation and international relationships. Ms. Kandra, it's your opportunity. Kindly welcome and share with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Ms. Kandra, we can't hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay, I wanted to share with you my experience, or you want to ask me any question?
Yes, continue. Share with us your experience.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for your inviting me these opportunities at IGAD and other organization. I think it is called I am involved with, since 25 years. I was involved with the civil society organizations, and I'm working mainly environmental protection and women, and also women rights. I was involved with that environment, climate change, livelihood, land management, and greening, and also community participation in the environment protection and agriculture. And I was involved also at the botanical garden in the Horn of Africa Regional Environment Center Northern in Addis Ababa. I am also a member of that the council of the that center. Nowadays, I was advocating for the environment and peace, because the environment is needed. The policy and protection, and to loving the government, to guarding the people who are always make the cutting trees and make charcoal, and the human being are always making the the problem, because they are cutting, they are through the the plastic packages, and they are also they are not aware that the environment protection and the trees in protection and tree important is, because there you see there the money time is that the drought is coming, and people are not asking why we are always drought, and also our climate is warming now, and the climate is changing. So the people are also needed to, to influence or to bring the ball that the environment important is. And also I was involved with the climate change program, and which was financing the Netherlands government. That program was also going on the 4 years. I was also participated the climate 21 in the Paris. I also participated IGAD, meetings. I have some experience for how to protect it and how to advocate it and how to save this environment and peace. And as well as also I am involved with the women issues, because when if the environment is becoming bad, the woman is also becoming the unhealthy, and the woman also is becoming the low income, and also women is we need women's involvement is at all levels in our programs. So we are establishing many women is self-help group women is we are the have now the lot of women who are organized and making the small businesses and management their small businesses, especially that women are the very poor women is, and the IDP camps women who are living there. Also I'm working in the women political participation, since we are suffering a lot of violences for the women, like FGM or rape, political power abuse. So I also involved with the women issues and the child right protection, especially especially the children who are disability. So just I can say like that, I have said that is somehow experience. Also we are involved with the women in home leadership, women is African leadership, and it was called G40, and that G40 was a high level women African leaders, and we are involved with the Somalia Peacebuilding, and also in the region, peace, security, and leadership. So I can say like that. So I will come back again. So if you have any question, if you need further explanation in my experience and my involvement, I will come back again. So thank you very much for your listening. And also, Somaliland is not the recognized country, so it is, very weak, people who are not care about and who are not, keep in the environment. Nowadays, my organization is launching the botanical garden, which will be coming the biggest in Africa botanical garden. So that botanical garden is established in Somaliland, especially at the Gede Botanical Garden. It is, becoming, the 20s, the Ethiopia Botanical Garden and Somaliland Botanical Garden becoming 20s and work together. So also I have that, program. That program is started this year. So now we are making the master plan. The master plan is survey is already done, and also the foundation workshop will be this month, and then the strategic plan will be, coming next step. So I am eager if the IGAD and the other people will be involved with these opportunities and this very important program called Botanical Garden. So I can say like that. I wanted to stop there. So thank you very much for your listening, for your time, for your giving me these opportunities and good chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kandra. Just a question. You mentioned that you have worked with women in natural resource management. Share with us that experience.
The women, we are making, because the natural resource management is, the people are needed to learn. So I am participating the money land use management is, and water management is, water catchment is, and water soil conservation. Then I was teaching, and I making, the dialogue and workshops, trainings for the women, grassroots women, especially the rural area women who are living in, the very hard situation. So I have participated in many, my natural resource management. Either they are, the courses, either they are, your workshops and regional, meetings, regional workshops. Like, the Addis Ababa, I was participating in Nairobi, Djibouti, and South Sudan. And, I was attending that meetings. So the natural resource management is that I have in some experience. Then since I am involved with the women issue, then I'm making the small women who are, cooperated women farmers, and I make so small group women that I was teaching the natural resource management and how to manage the land, because that women, they have a small farmers women, and they have also small nurseries. So I can say like that I was participating, and I was taking parties. The many ways and the many, are different involvement is the natural resource management.
Thank you. You mentioned something about environment and natural resource degradation. Help us understand, what are some of the environmental and natural resource issues that you're facing in Somaliland?
Yeah, because Somaliland as well as Somalia, we have the charcoal protection people who are cutting our acacia trees. So there is a, land degradation has been happening in Somalia. So when the rain is coming, the water run off away and through going to the sea, and there's a many gullies that the water are cutting the land. So you can see the money lands which is degraded, and the money gullies are becoming, and there's no much control, and there's no much programs which is managing the environment, natural resource management. So my understanding is that because when the trees is cutting and the water is run off, and the land is coming the gullies, and you see the fertilization of the soil as the gun. So there is a many area which is degraded in Somaliland and Somalia. And if you are visiting, if you come here, you can see many areas that is becoming very dangerous areas. And climate change also, you see, my Somaliland is, especially Somaliland was, it was good climate. There is no warm. Now we cannot stay in our home. You can feeling that the climate is changing because trees of cutting, the people are not replanting, the people are not making any replanting and any regreening. So the environment, natural resource degradation has been, increasing day after day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kandra, for sharing those sentiments. You've talked about women and the question of their health and the question of income and involvement in the protection of their environment, and women also in leadership. You have raised the question of launching the botanical garden. You've talked about training and capacity building for the women to enable them understand and also implement land and water management issues. You've talked about charcoal burning and the cutting down of trees, which is being experienced in Somaliland and the larger Somalia, especially the acacia tree, which I want to believe is a local or an indigenous tree in the area. You've talked about the rains washing away the topsoil and the gullies and the degradation of the land and the natural environment because the trees have been cut and the rains are actually able to wash out the soil because there's no root or there's no tree that is holding that back. You've talked about the impact of climate change and the fact that it's becoming very hot by the day. And of course, that impacts food security, both for the animal and for the people. Kandra Omar, she's calling in from Somalia. For those who joined us, we just had a presentation for Kandra Omer Hassan, who's calling in from Somaliland. Thank you so much. Our next presenter, allow me, will be Ms. Haga Monsif. Ms. Haga Monsif is calling in from Egypt. Ms. Haga is the North African coordinator of the UN NGO Media Group for Africa. She has extensive experience in international and African mechanisms to protect human rights, where she has worked closely with the United Nations, the African Union, ECOSOC, and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Haga's work concentrates on a range of issues that include human rights, democracy, terrorism, peace building, and sustainable development, focusing on the African continent and other countries around the world. Ms. Haga is a trainer and has been a keynote speaker in a number of international and local conferences. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science and is now pursuing her master's degree in international relations. Ms. Haga, the opportunity is yours. Kindly welcome and share with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manini, and thank you, Miriam, for organizing this very important session that tackles a unique topic, as I always say, the environment and peace building. I thank you for this, and I would like directly to speak to the point, and I'll try to be as clear as possible, and I'll be very excited to receive any question or any comments after I finish the presentation. I do have a PowerPoint that I would like to share with you. Just give me one moment. Yes. Yes, so talking about, oh, just give me a moment. The technical issues are always a problem. No matter how much you're prepared, they are always a problem.
True story. When you did it to work, it won't work. Anyway, let's see.
We were able to see it for a moment there. Do you want to?
You were able to see it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, we did.
Share screen again, and then this share.
There we go.
Okay, so the environment, peace building, and transitional justice in Africa. I don't know why I cannot see it from my side. I don't know why.
We can see it on our end.
Okay. Anyways. Again. I apologize for the delay. I really do. Just.
It's okay. We can see it.
Okay. Yes, I think we now both can see it. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome again, and I'm sorry for the technical issues. This is the corona cost that we have to pay. So, environment and peace building. I'll try to talk today about a number of points from my experiences and from what I've been working on, either on human rights or on sustainable development. And we will try to discuss together how can we move forward in this very vital topic. So let us first talk about the connection between environmental issues and conflict. Well, the connections between environmental issues and conflict are many and complex. Environmental factors themselves are rarely the sole cause of violence, but natural resource management, ethnic tension, and power politics together may cause conflict. And to make it more clear, we can say that there are two directions between conflict and the environment that can influence security. Conflict influences the environment by direct damage as well as by disturbance of the environment's productivity in the future. As an example, unexploded bombs, explosive remains, radiation, and attacks on industrial sites where dangerous substances are stored and processed can pose risks to communities even longer after the conflicts are over. And moreover, the documentation of environmental hazards in both conflict and post-conflict settings is often minimal due to security constraints. Contrariwise, poor environmental and resource practices can increase the vulnerability and the risk of conflict. So this is what happens in poor environmental regions. But what about rich ones? Well, unfortunately, also resource-rich regions that may not have the capacity to develop their own resources usually face insecurity, because opportunistic nations with wealth and technology often take unfair advantage. Wealthy entities may make deals with those in power with little concern with the equitable distribution of profits resulting from resource development. Thus, unfortunately, many developing nations have only become rich from foreign investment, while average citizens reaps little or no gains. And actually, this is the case in Africa. This is what happened. The African continent was abused because of its rich resources, and till now, African citizens are suffering because of this abuse. This was like a brief introduction about the connection between environment and conflict. And as a result of my occupation working on sustainable development and human rights in around 48% of the African continent, I'll try to provide now a map of the main environmental crimes that is happening in the targeted region. And today we are focusing on IGAD, COMESA, and North Africa, which includes a high number of countries. As we can see from the map in the presentation, the resources conflict map, we can see is this type of conflict that has affected nearly each and every country in Africa. And it varied from battles to protests to violence. And we can also see that it is more concentrated in the region of Horn Africa. This map is from 1997 to 2014. So this is a general view of the resource conflict-based reasons. But in order to have a clearer map, I will divide the insecurity situations that happens in our targeted regions today into two divisions. The first one is the situation where natural resources causing conflict. Well, from oil in Nigeria and diamonds in the DRC to lands in Zimbabwe and water in the Horn of Africa, the politics surrounding ownership, management, and control of natural resources has disrupted communities and increased external intervention in the continent. Let us start by South Sudan. Well, about 5% of violent conflict in South Sudan since 2011 has been obviously resource related. The vast majority of this type of conflict seen in South Sudan comprises battles, primarily between government forces and rebel groups. If we move to Sudan similarly, well, Sudan has also experienced a high number of oil-related conflicts. About half of this conflict is comprised of battles which occur largely in the highly beautiful region of Abyei region, if I pronounce it right, of course. In Somalia, and I know Mrs. Khadra was with us today, so I won't add more about Somalia. I'll just say very briefly that Somalia sees a high number of directly resource-related conflicts that is largely driven by battles between militias over access to and control of land and water resources. And in a region with a chronically high temperature year-round and limited or irregular rainfall, these natural resources become even more valuable. If we moved a little bit to the north, to Libya, well, Libya is home to Africa's largest oil reserves. And that's why it was under attack for years by the Islamic State terrorist group, which followed, what can I say, a strategic tactic to control the oil reserves. And of course, this had a very negative effect on the resources that the Libyan people should benefit from. To the DRC, DRC is primarily fueled by mining, like diamonds and cobalt. And the DRC is estimated to have about $24 trillion worth of untapped deposits of raw minerals. So it's a very rich country because this includes the world's largest reserves of cobalt. The majority of this type of conflict in the DRC is also battles, primarily between the government forces and rebel groups over gaining control over mines. Coming to Djibouti. Well, Djibouti has a very unique situation because it is a small yet and very important country, because it has a highly strategic location, as you can see in the map. It has access to the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean beyond. The country is a significant gateway to the Horn of Africa and the wider region of East Africa. But surprisingly, the geographical location was described in some studies as a curse. Yes, as you heard, natural resources can be a curse to countries possessing them, bringing negative economic, social, and political externalities. So now we've talked about how natural resources can be source of conflict. Let us now move to the negative impacts of conflicts on environment, how conflicts negatively affect environment. And to clarify that, let me share with you that the impacts of conflicts on environment are generally categorized as direct and indirect. So the direct impacts relates to those occur physically linked to military action, and it occurs on a short term. Some examples of the direct impact include natural resources destruction, environmental contamination because of bombing of industrial sites, military waste remains, and other. Whereas indirect impacts are those that can be reliably attributed to the conflict, but they usually tangle with many other factors and appear on a medium or longer term, which may include environmental footprint of displaced population, collapse of environmental governance, and lack of funding for environmental protection. Talking practically with case studies, let us talk about Rwanda. Well, unfortunately, genocide in Rwanda led to killings of roughly around 800,000 human beings, which is very unfortunate. The war also created a massive migration of nearly 2 million fleeing Rwanda to refugee camps in Tanzania and the DRC. The effect of this large displacement of people in refugee camps has put pressure on the surrounding ecosystem. Forests were cleared in order to provide wood for building shelters and use for firewood. Those people, I know, suffered from harsh conditions, but at the same time, they constituted an important threat impact on natural resources in Tanzania and in the DRC. Again, talking about my favorite country, the DRC. The continued war in the DRC since 1995 to around 2006 has brought a noteworthy loss of wildlife, including the beautiful elephants. So it had an effect on the wildlife. The war has also affected the wildlife. Coming to Eritrea, I hope you're following up with so many countries, but the target regions today, the IGAD, COMESA, and North Africa, has lots of countries. So in Eritrea, the conflicts that have occurred there throughout the years had directly affected the environment. The combined effects have created environmental stress, which has far-reaching implications for state, society, and inter-community relations. Talking about also one of my favorite countries, Uganda. Well, in Uganda, local proliferation of small arms has led to increasing of hunting. And it had a very also negative effect, including affecting the Uganda's hippos population during 1970. Finally, of course, while we are talking today about environmental crimes and disasters in the region, we cannot skip the sorrow events that recently happened in Algeria in North Africa. Algeria has faced severe fires for days, and the consequences of this risk are harmful in terms of social, economic, and environmental components in the whole region. Indeed, this may affect peace if no environmental and security measures are taken quickly. After mapping the environmental crimes that are happening in the region and clarifying the connection between environment and peace building by evidence, you are sure asking, okay, so what's next? How can we move forward? In order to move forward, we should first tackle the challenges. What are the challenges that we are facing today for adopting environmental policies during the peace building processes? First one is the African neglection for conflict impacts on environment. And that's why in my introduction, I was saying that I thank you for this topic. And I know that this session is a part of a huge project, which I really praise. Let me ask you all, what is the first thing that you think of or that just pops on your mind when we say post-conflict peace building? The answers will vary from state building, economic development, social sector reform programs, including health and education, and so on. Barely one or two will mention curing the environmental damage or resource protection. Environment sector in Africa is still looked at as a complementary sector, not as a main source of life. Natural resources are still controlled with power, not with wise management. Climate change is still dealt with as a luxurious problem. But till when? When will we start looking to our environment as our main source of living? When will we start realizing that economic development is linked to natural resources, that peace is linked to water, that forest is linked to sunlight, and that land is linked to security? So this is the first challenge that we do have to overcome. The second challenge in Africa is that most policies have not embraced environmental crime as a part of administration of criminal justice. This is, in turn, has rendered sustainable management of the environment quite difficult, affecting the attainment of Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063. The third challenge, the institutional arrangement for implementation and monitoring and reinforcement of the environment's commitments are generally weak or even absent. And the fourth and final challenge is the absence of collective work and including stakeholders. So those are the challenges that I wanted to highlight and to see how us together can work to overcome them. I don't know if I still have time, Munini, to present the work that we have been doing as a civil society.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Very good. Thank you so much. It will just take a couple of minutes to talk to you more about what we were doing as civil society in order to share with you the steps that we've been taking. So today I would present three things that we've been doing. The first thing is working with the UN and African Union. So as being involved in the UN major groups, which is affiliated to the United Nations data, and concentrating on sustainable development, at the same time having the consultative status in the UN and representing the Egyptian civil society in the African Union ECOSOC. I've been trying so hard to gather the United Nations and the African Union to highlight the connection between human rights, sustainable development, and environment. In so many occasions, when I talk about human rights, the first thing that comes to the mind is the political and civic rights, or economic and social rights. But what about the environmental rights? So what we've been trying to do is to present reports to the UN and to the African Union, to the related agencies, of course, to present oral interventions in the official sessions, talking with the officials and the diplomats from all over the world, and implementing events, side events inside the UN or in the framework of the African Union work about environment, sustainable development, human rights, peace, terrorism, like linking all the subjects that civil society have been talking about, each one alone, separately. So as an example, if you can see in the picture, if it is it is clear enough. This was a session between the African Union inside the UN headquarters in New York, talking about green economy in Africa. The second thing that we've been doing is Africa Water for Peace. Africa Water for Peace is a new initiative that has been there since April 2021, which is months ago, and that gathers civil society from all the African continent with a common aim, which is looking at the water resources as a source of cooperation rather than a source of conflict. The initiative was founded, as I mentioned, by civil society, but now it includes different stakeholders, different sectors, private sector, students, academics, and like different stakeholders where we all share together our experiences and add to each other. How can the African continent look as water as a source of cooperation? Right now, this initiative is concentrating on the dispute that is happening in the Nile Basin region. I can send in the chat box the website and the email for the initiative if you want more information about that. The final thing is a little bit something personal, but it is my pleasure today to share it with you. I am pursuing my master's degree in political science and especially in international relations. And my thesis or my concentration is about how can water be even a source of peace, not only a source of cooperation. So I'm studying how water resources and international rivers can be the motivation for peaceful international relations between the countries. And this concept, it is like a new concept called the Blue Peace, but I'm still studying it and see how can we implement this in Africa. And I will be also pleased to share with you the outcomes of this thesis that I will finish in 2 or 3 months. I hope so. So, yeah, this is what I have today. I hope I didn't take lots of time. I just was very excited with the topic of environment and peace. I thank you again for organizing this event. Monini, I go back to you and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was Ms. Haga Monsip with a presentation. She's calling in from Egypt. She has raised quite a number of issues, including initiatives that they are looking at. Africa Water for Peace, Blue Peace, very interesting. She's raised the challenges, impact of conflicts on the environment, also on the wildlife, an interesting perspective right there. We have talked about natural resources causing conflict, amongst other issues that you have heard her speak of. Earlier on, we had Ms. Kandra Omer Hassan, who also did a presentation calling in from Somaliland. So now allow me to thank both panelists. Thank you so much for those presentations, comprehensive, and that are raising quite some interesting questions. And it's time for questions now. I have seen we have a few questions on the chat. So allow me to start with the first question right here that says, to all panelists, could you please advise approaches or methodologies of scoping and mapping of environment and peacemaking and reconciliation, or assessments that can enable us to produce an advanced scoping report on environment and peace building that could be political opportunities for conflict post. I want to believe they are saying for post-conflict peace building initiatives, scoping and assessments that can be used for post-conflict peace building initiatives. That's a question to all panelists. Then we have a question to Kandra. Kandra, the question here is, has the conflict in Somalia over the years acquired a natural resource perspective? We know Somalia has been in conflict for quite a while. So the question is, has that conflict dragged in natural resource perspectives, and what are they? And then we have another question from Ms. Haga, and the question is, so how can transitional justice address the challenges that you raised? How can transitional justice address the challenges that you raised? So for now, we can address those, and then I'll pick more questions for you. So we can start with Kandra. Kandra, can you hear us? You're muted in case you're speaking. Okay, while she gets back, maybe Haga, you can go ahead with your question. We can't hear you, you're muted. Sorry.
Thanks.
It's okay, it happens.
Yes, there were two questions raised. The first one about the environmental, I can see it in the chat box here, the assessments and the mapping. I guess I already answered this question if I got it right with so many countries in the region. Regarding the second question, talking about how can we overcome the challenges in the transitional justice period. Well, let me say that first of all, this needs real political will. Political will is very important to see how can we protect the environment, how can we build the institutions, how can we develop the economic sector, how can we, so there are lots of topics that happens in the transitional justice period. So a political will that includes an environmental vision is very important. Also, joining the stakeholders is very, very important. The public sector of the government cannot do everything alone. It is very hard for the government or the government officials to take all the decisions and to do all the studies and to be, experts in everything. So including the stakeholders from professors to civil society to different experts in the environment sector. Even inside the environment sector, there are of course experts in water, in land, and whatsoever. Is also very important to have a collective vision and to put reliable and practical steps for protecting the environment. Not only a huge vision with a very good hopes, but we cannot implement it on the real ground. So also this is a very important point that should be included.
Thank you very much. This is just a comment, it's also in the chat. It says that about Libya, it's not the armed Islamist militias, but also only, I want to believe, but also other militias that are fighting to control oil reserves like Haftar's militias.
That's true. The Libyan situation is very complicated and includes lots of actors and lots of battles, if I may say. I just mentioned the Islamic militias because this is the part that I've been studying, because I've been studying their tactics or their projects in Libya, Syria, and Iraq. So, but I totally agree with the person who wrote the comment. The Libyan situation is very complicated. I wish them all the best. If she's from Libya, I wish them all the best.
Thank you. Sandra, if you're back, you can step in, just in case you would like to answer a question or make a comment. The other question sent to Haga is the lack of environmental consideration a reflection of the African society, or is it a reflection of the colonial legacy, or is it a reflection of the modern state and the economic structure? What is the problem?
Can I say all of them? All of them. So you see, now the environmental situation is very bad. I don't want to give a negative energy, but the environmental situation is not good, and this is because of lots of reflections and lots of years also. It didn't happen only yesterday or the day before or a year before. It's like year by year by year by year. And it is a part of a huge problem in the African societies. The lack of awareness is a huge obstacle and challenge that we always face when we try to work on the African continent. The lack of vision, the governmental vision for implementing and adopting environmental policies. The modern economic system is just, the capitalism is just crazy in all the resources, even the human resources. So how about the environmental resources? So I may say that it is a reflection of a complex of reasons and that's why I was mentioning a couple of times about the stakeholders, because you see, you cannot tackle all the reasons alone. If you are an expert or you have experiences in one aspect, then other stakeholder can join you and you can combine efforts to resolve this complex situation in order to solve it. I hope I answered.
Thank you. I hope the person is answered. Another question is, so what support would you like to see from the African human rights system?
A lot. So first of all, the African human rights system, because of the severe human rights violations that the African people are facing, is always concentrating, as I mentioned, on the political or the economic aspects. So till 2020, we're still talking about health problems and education problems and water problems and sanitation even problems in 2021. So I don't want to put lots of pressure on the African human rights system, but today it is a crucial need to tackle environmental aspects. The African Commission on Peoples and Human Rights may, as an example, adopt a resolution for having a special rapporteur for environment. This may save lots of time and effort, and to have just one person to be responsible to concentrate on environmental crimes that is happening in the countries, and that can provide advice to the governments. How can they overcome their environmental problems? As I mentioned, awareness is very important again. And when I say awareness, I don't talk about us here as people who know even a little bit about what is the environment. I'm talking about our brothers and sisters who are far away from this aspect, to talk to them in a very simple advices. How can they play a role in environmental protection? The African human rights system also, I recommend that they participate or work more with other organizations in civil society, or even the UN or the EU or the Arab League, to work together in transferring the know-how techniques for protecting the environment. If the African human rights system can do those points, I think we may see a positive development.
Thank you. More questions. We have a comment there, but let me ask a question before the comment. At the beginning, you mentioned about the resource poor regions and resource rich regions, which all suffer. But the resource rich countries, largely it's because of external interference. So what is the place of the, what can the justice system do about this third-party interference, which is largely multinational companies and Western countries?
Well, this is also a very complicated issue, because the African continent's main problem, as I personally believe, is because of international intervention. How do you believe that Africa is the richest continent in the world, but still has the highest poor rates? This is like simply because the resources of the country is not going to the citizens. They are going to other places. So you will find rich countries, but with very, very poor citizens. They are suffering from a lack of like basic needs of their life. I'm sorry, you were asking about the reasons, or how can we overcome? I was just
yes. The question is, what can be done about it?
So, looking about the external interventions, the first thing or the main thing that should be implemented to fight or to combat that is having a good governance system, strong institutions. SDG 16 and Aspiration 3 and 4 in Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2030, we're talking about peace and strong institutions. And there is a huge connection between them. If I want to protect my resources, I should have a strong protector. A strong protector in this situation that we are talking about is a strong government, strong institutions. And when I talk about government, I don't talk about persons, because this is the vision that we do have in Africa. Government for us is persons, and this is completely wrong. Government is a symbol. A person comes, a person goes, faces change, but the vision should continue. So strong institutions will be the key for this problem, which is the external intervention. And if we solve this, you will find so many problems just solved, not only the environmental problems and the natural resources problem. Other also problems will be solved if the country have strong institutions.
Should the strong institutions only be on the African states, or should they also be from the third parties? Should the responsibility be shared, or should it only be on the burden of the African states to protect?
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I agree with you. The responsibility is not only about the African countries, because the main reason was the other countries who just enforce themselves inside and benefit from the resources. So the international community should put pressure on those countries which negatively affect the natural resources of the African continent to stop doing so. But politics is controlling everything, and politics even control diplomacy. So at a time or at a stage, the international community will not cross 11, no matter how many conventions they do, no matter how many conferences they talk about. The economic and political interests will be the priority of those countries, and mainly Western countries. So it's true, you're right, the Western countries should have a responsibility, and the international community should put a pressure on that, but the countries themselves also should have a protection system for their natural resources. So both of them would make the situation much more bright.
Thank you very much. Last question and last comment. Allow me to start with the last comment, unless there's another question from our participants. If you have one more question, please send it in before we finish. The comment says, as you know, foreign interventions in Libya exacerbated the situation. True, thousands of refugees from the south. True, even Libya, refugees in Tunisia and with the support of neighboring countries, including Chad, Sudan, South Sudan, Tunisia, Algeria. Thank you very much to the person who's making that comment. We agree with you that there was an accessibility situation there because of more reasons than only foreign intervention. It's not only because of foreign intervention, but there are more reasons. The situations are more complicated than what we see. It's not only one aspect that we can pick out to actually talk about the exacerbation of the situation in Libya, amongst other countries that have seen the crisis that we saw in Libya. So the last question is, having worked in the field and having the interest of environment and justice, what would justice look like when it comes to environmental issues from your perspective, especially from a local person's perspective? What would justice look like?
You mean as local as like in Egypt?
Egypt, any other country that is facing environmental abuses and crimes that are either created from within or because of conflicts or because of external interference, what would justice look like for the people?
May I answer this as a citizen, not as
Yes.
as anything else? Yes.
As a citizen.
Yes, as just a regular citizen. Well, in North Africa, especially because I was studying the environmental aspects in North Africa, the environment is not so good. It's not so good at all. So as a citizen, I would be satisfied or happy when my children, they don't have diseases because of the polluted air or polluted water. As I mentioned today, we do have still basic problems as water and sanitation problems, as an example. So justice for one person may be to have clean water to drink and good sanitation services. This will protect my children and my family from diseases, and this is, for me, it will be considered as justice. For another person, a farmer, as an example, like stop seeing the fires in the fields, in the agricultural fields, would be considered as a justice, because even in Egypt we see lots of unaware citizens just put on fire to their wastes, and this affects other citizens, like surrounding families living around. So this for me would be considered as justice. What else? So many things to say. So basically, living in a clean environment would be considered as a justice from a local perspective. Nowadays, we're facing a heat wave, and this was part of the reasons what is happening in Algeria and also in Egypt and in other countries. The heat wave is because of the environmental crimes that has been happening for years. So, and the heat waves are affecting everything, the food, skin, and everything. So this would also be considered as a problem for implementing justice. So briefly, environmental justice would be living in a clean place, drinking clean water, breathing clean air, and having good health as a result of that.
Thank you very much, Haga. That was Haga Monsi from Egypt, sharing with us perspectives on environment, peace building, and transitional justice. And we also had Ms. Kandra Omer Hassan from Somaliland. Unfortunately, Ms. Kandra Omer, we were not able to continue with the discussion. Probably her internet has issues, but we want to thank her as well for the participation and for being part of the panel. Hello.
I am here. I am with you.
Oh, you're with us.
Yes,
Thank
yes, I am
you.
listening to the presentation.
Thank you. We've been waiting to hear from you. Unfortunately, we assumed your internet connection went off. So
yeah,
there
sometimes.
Okay, there were a few questions for you. Maybe I can proceed with that if you're okay.
Yeah, I understand this project that Hagi is explanations and the presentation has been given us. So still, I am not understanding what is this project and where this project is going on. Another question that I have is that how IGAD has involved and in participate and take part in the regional environment challenge, regional environment problem, including climate change and the peace building. So how can the IGAD is take part and support this issue? And because we are in our situation is, we have a lot of challenges in environmental degradation and environmental problems. So just I wanted to say that. So thank you very much for your, these opportunities and giving us this chance. And I think we will keep in continuous, and the people is needed to, connect with one another and also communicating and solving together this problem in the environmental challenge. So I can say thank you very much for your giving us this chance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Kandra Omer. That is Ms. Kandra Omer calling from Somaliland. So we want to thank our panelists for the participation, for the information they've shared, and for making this discussion interesting. Thank you to our participants for the questions, for the time, and for your participation in this webinar. While transitional justice addresses human rights abuses and crimes as they relate to society, the question continues, how about environmental abuses and crimes? Can this find space in the discussions and the practices of transitional justice? So next week, we're going to be traveling and visiting Northern African region. We're going to be hearing from the censored and the AMU or UMA, that is a community of Sahara states and the Arab Maghreb region, where we will be having at least a representative who will be speaking to us. So once again, we welcome you to join us in the presentation next week on Tuesday, same time. We want to appreciate the team that has been making this webinar possible, from the Environmental Peacebuilding Association led by the President, Carl, and also from the Bosch Alumni Network led by Sarah. We want to appreciate the project team that has been putting this together and that has made it possible for it to happen. We want to acknowledge that the recordings are already, the recordings for the last webinars are already uploaded on the website, and you will find them also on YouTube. And even this discussion will be uploaded on YouTube and on the website. Once again, we welcome you that you continue with us in this discussion as we continue to address the issue of environment, transitional justice, and peace building, and as we continue to inform the African Union Transitional Justice Policy of 2019 as countries continue to contextualize the same and to make their own transitional justice policies. Once again, I am Munini Mutuku, who was facilitating the session. Thank you, and we wish you a good evening, good morning, and good night. We'll see you next time. Stay safe. Thank you.